for September 20th. Good to see some folks here and our great staff as always. Mr. Nance will be leading us tonight, Riverdale High School Assistant Principal, in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Nance. A moment of silence, of course, will be Thursday. Any comment on number 4, the approval of the agenda? Anything you want to move or discuss at this time? Give you a few seconds. I know most of you have already looked at this. And on Thursday, looking at number 5, we will get the approval of the consent agenda at that time. Any comments on that, the minutes or otherwise? Okay, I don't hear or see anything, so we're in good shape there. Mr. Odom, number 9.
Number 9, this is a 2016 Education Department 2152 certification of compliance with Tennessee Code Annotated Section 493301-1A. The superintendent and the chairman of the board of each local education agency shall certify to the commissioner on or before October 15th of the current school year that all children enrolled in the LEA have been furnished all required textbooks as determined by the commissioner. Recommend approval. The motion for approval of the 2016 ED 2152 Certificate of Compliance Report showing all children enrolled in the LEA have been furnished all required textbooks. Now remember, in some of our career and technical education classes, occasionally in an English class or something like that, there's a set in the room as a reference. If it's not homework and directly assigned of it on a daily basis, in some cases, the sets in the room for them or stay in the room because they're reference material, but everyone should have a textbook this time.
Questions or comments from anybody on this recommendation? We'll vote on all of these, of course, on Thursday. This one, of course, is pretty standard. We do this every year. Number 10, Ms. Odom.
Number 10 is the textbook adoption for a book not on the state list, and this is the Form ED 5196, local adoption of textbooks not on contract. And this is the Career and Technical Education Instruction Department is requesting approval for the local adoption of textbooks not on contract, those not on the official list of textbook. And this will be Pharmacological Science, 12th edition, for grades 10 and 12. Recommend approval. The motion is for Rutherford County to request approval of adoption of the textbook listed above, Pharmacological Science, that's not included in the official state list of textbooks.
Comment from anyone? Number 11.
Number 11 is facilities, naming of internal street at Rocky Fork Schools. Engineering and construction is in the process of acquiring an address for the new Rocky Fork Middle and Elementary Schools. This is one internal street that needs to be named and approved by the Rutherford County School Board before Rutherford County Emergency 911 Agency will assign an address. This is the street that runs adjacent to the middle and elementary on the south side. Since the mascots are named Thunder and Storm for the elementary and middle school respectively, Mr. Trey Lee, the project manager for engineering and construction, has submitted the name of Thunderstorm Lane. All other streets in the area will be named as road extensions of existing or future developments. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve Thunderstorm Lane as the name of the street that runs adjacent to Rocky Fork Middle and Elementary Schools on the south side of the school campus.
Just pointing out to the older members of our audience, including myself, this was a great opportunity to name the road Thunder Road. Somewhere Robert Mitchum is not a happy camper tonight. But Thunder and Storm will be great.
You can still do that if you want to.
Well, I intend to make no such motion. Any other comment? Okay, B.
B is the Riverdale High School softball restrooms. Mr. Tom Nolan, the principal at Riverdale High School, has requested permission to add a restroom facility in the locker room of the existing softball building. Mr. Jim Thompson of Thompson Heating and Air will be coordinating and supplying labor and material for the project. Rutherford County Schools Engineering and Construction has investigated and discussed the project with Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson will permit the project and follow all state and local codes. The project is to be funded by parents and the Softball Booster Club at no cost to the board. The facility will have approximately 4 water closets, 4 lavatories, and 1 shower. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve the construction of a restroom facility in the existing softball facility at Riverdale High School at no cost to the Rutherford County School Board as presented.
Comment from anyone?
I'd just point out, just for consistency's sake, we should add a Title IX disclosure here on this. That,
Well, this probably brings us closer to Title IX.
well, I understand, but just the same.
Many of you know Mr. Thompson. I'm sure he is a real supporter of just about everything involving Rutherford County Schools. And his business is located, I don't know, about halfway between here and Eagleville, I guess. And he is just a super guy. And certainly we appreciate his help in this endeavor. Any other comments? C, please.
C is the Whitworth Buchanan Middle School concrete project. Ms. Avi Seymour, the principal at Whitworth Buchanan Middle School, has requested permission to place concrete around the baseball, softball concession stand and place concrete for a future batting facility that will serve both baseball and softball for hitting practice. The project is approximately 2,640 square feet of concrete and partially donated by Smyrna Ready Mix, with labor being done by Summit Concrete at a cost of $1.90 per square foot. This project will be funded by fundraisers and donations at no cost to the board. Recommend approval. The motion to approve placement of approximately 2,640 square feet of concrete at Whitworth Buchanan Middle School baseball and softball complex, benefiting both the girls and boys teams at no cost to the Rutherford County School Board as presented.
Obviously, another local business is helping out Rutherford County Schools, and this particular one's a long way from their place of business, Smyrna Ready Mix, and we appreciate that as well. Any comments?
I wonder, Mr. Chairman, if maybe we might start a habit of sending a thank you note from the board to these stakeholders for their contribution and investment in our public school system.
I can't imagine anybody would object to that. Ms. Michaels, what do you think? To Mr. Thompson and Smyrna Ready Mix? Okay, if that's okay with the board. Okay, D.
D is bids for Smyrna Middle School Edition and David Urey Elementary School Edition. Engineering and Construction received bids on Smyrna Middle School Edition and David Urey Elementary School Edition in the Rutherford County Boardroom at 2:00 p.m. on August 30, 2016. Bids were received from 2 contractors, R.G. Anderson Company, Incorporated, and Sane Construction Company. Sane submitted the best and lowest bid on Smyrna Middle School with a base bid of $8,944,000, and alternates chosen by Engineering and Construction totaling $1,101,800, bringing the grand total to $10,045,800. These alternatives include paint for the existing building and corridors, replacement of existing galvanized plumbing pipe, consolidation of electrical services, the new dining room expansion and new corridor entrance, annex toilet room renovation, and courtyard concrete. Sane was also the lowest and best bidder on the David Urey Elementary School Edition with a base bid of $2,494,000 and the kitchen floor alternate of $24,000, bringing the total to $2,518,000. The site and construction estimates in the 2-year building plan for these 2 projects totals $13,350,000. These 2 bids, including the development total, $12,563,800, which is $786,200 less than the estimates we've been working with. Therefore, if the total David Urey Elementary School construction and FFE estimates were funded, these schools would be available since the estimated cost of the Smyrna Middle School addition has been funded. The original motion is to approve, motion to approve same construction as lowest and best bidder for both Smyrna Middle School addition, David Urey Elementary School addition, as presented contingent upon funding by the Rutherford County Commission. So the last part, contingent upon funding, is the issue that we need to discuss some tonight. Basically, if you remember, we moved $5 million from ending fund balance to cover some projects. We had to pick up some extra on the Rocky Fork project, and we're going to have to pick up extra here. What the commission has never funded the David Urey project. They only funded design, is all they have done to this particular point. Fully funding this and the concession areas and restroom areas at the two high schools, Laverne and Smyrna High, is going to exceed those monies and possibly bring us below a 5% ending fund balance. Mr. Sanvey is going to we've had him do some pencil work and some things that we need to do. So just we're kind of looking for your input, and we'll may come back with a different motion Thursday night. We do need to go ahead for sure and approve the bids from Sane to at least lock it in for 90 days. I think we need to do the funding for sure so we can start the Smyrna Middle School. Remember, the commission has never funded David Urey at this particular point. They completed a $101 million funding request and offer last week. It was at the commission Thursday night. And the figure that they used basically to do the borrowing was the initial figure we had for Smyrna Middle School, which when the bids came in was higher. So we're trying to make some of that up with ending fund balance. So I think we need to approve those two bids. I think we probably need to do an amendment for funding, which I'll let Mr. Sanvey explain, and he's kind of got a sheet to help you with that, so that we can get the Smyrna Middle School started. It's very likely we may wind up right now, because the funds aren't there and it's not approved by the commission, we do not have funding to complete the David Urey project and certainly those two restroom concession stands at this point. Will we a little bit later or something? Possibly. So if the board would like, Mr. Sanvey can kind of tell you how we can do some money shifting to try to get started on the Smyrna Middle project for sure, since it has been bid and funded at the original estimated amount.
Mr. Sanvey?
Well, the two-page sheet I left y'all with yellow and blue, a routine format for building program amendment, some cleanup within building projects. The blue column shows transfers to other projects. And what this boils down to, if you want us to proceed with an amendment, we are increasing the architect's fee at Rocky Fork Middle by $125,000. That did not get adjusted when we did our previous amendment. When I was going through the building program report, it was obvious we needed a change there. On page 2, and I moved elementary, middle, high school money and kept the mix of borrowed and of shared and unshared money with the city system. $1,384,000, halfway down, near rightmost column, $1,384,168,000. After the other amendments, if we basically would be asking commission permission to borrow that as part of that transfer that we did, the $5.499 million earlier. And we will have $2,259,421 still available of that cash that we transferred to the building program. If we go this direction.
Board?
Do I understand that ending fund balance needs to be at 5%?
I think it would be, it does not have to be, but I think it would be very prudent for us to stay at 5%.
Okay.
With our size, it doesn't take much of a swing. You know, we have been, in recent years, we have been under 5 a lot. I like being back at 5. Actually, we're at 6.6. But the other thing that Odom hasn't mentioned yet is we also have had discussions, and we'll need to make a decision if we want to proceed with some more land purchases or what. So there is some additional money we could transfer from fund balance, but it's not enough to cover all of these projects and buy land.
Understood.
Yeah. So our thought was take care of try and get Smyrna Middle going, and I threw in the Rocky Fork, take that out and address that later on if you'd prefer. I just took care of it trying to take care of it all.
Smyrna Middle is approved by the county commission.
It's
Right.
approved, but the amount approved, see, is less than the
Right.
bids came in. That's what's.
And
created the
David
issue.
Uri is going to need their attention.
Yeah.
David Years, they've never approved the building yet, just design.
They just approved architect's fees.
It is exceedingly rare, though, for the county commission to approve a design fee. I don't know that they've ever approved a design fee and not built it eventually,
Eventually.
right? And that, maybe not the next year, but soon.
Mr. Sandvik,
Yes, ma'am.
help me understand the architect addition to their fee on the Rocky Fork Middle School.
Okay. When we had to increase, that's where most of the first $5.5 million of the $11 million we transferred, the costs came in higher primarily because of site work. And when we worked up that amendment and increased that budget, I did not think of increasing the architect's fees at the same time, just
It's a percentage of your,
percentage,
and so when your
Yeah.
project came in higher,
yeah,
more dollars.
And it goes up
yeah.
scale. Okay.
Yeah.
What did we pay for that in 4 and 3/4? What was it, Rocky?
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Is
3 and 3/4?
that we use as a prototype, so, or the site is different, the way that for the site.
Yeah, and just in hindsight, we should have caught this. We didn't have an updated building program report for the courthouse. We just had the year-end one. And didn't realize we could have gone that.
Thank you, no, that explained it, thank you.
We were more worried about $5.5 million.
Understood.
And I did have, that is probably an amount we can cover internally within that project, but I thought while we were amending, just go ahead and address that issue. But also, if you look on page 2 in the blue column, the Smyrna Middle renovation, that $875,682, that and the $1,384,168, add those two together, and that's what we need for Smyrna. It's not just the $1,384,000.
It's the 1,000,003 plus 875,
Yeah, about 2.1 million for Smyrna.
plus 125,000 on the architect fees. Pushing towards 2-3.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you'll recall, we did, value engineering on that job and for $1.5 million, it was 1.6 million, that we reduced the cost of the original bid by.
Site development before we change that.
Yeah, the site development mainly, but the site came in, that's where they did high. We had enough in the construction part for the building, but the site was higher than we anticipated.
So is the 9,742 and some change, is that what the commission has allowed us funded wise?
If you look over the white column before the blue column, right now that budget is at 8,866,610
That's what the commission has allowed.
at this point, yes, sir.
And we're at 10 something to do it.
Okay.
This will take it more to 11, a little over 11. Yeah.
Any further questions, board?
I guess what we're kind of looking for, probably the motion we have here won't stand, but if we decide to go, I'm thinking in terms of, we got to prioritize this. Is Smyrna Middle priority 1? Then is David Ure priority 2, or is the bleachers concession priority 2? David Ure, where does that fit in there? So we've got to kind of decide as the monies get there when we can kind of do this.
Smyrna Middle seems to have our most direct classroom impact because of the annex and reconfiguring that area. In addition to that, Smyrna Middle also has impact on security because of entering there, right? Am I remembering those correctly? Okay. David Ure, we have security and then intervention space. Okay, so I think both of those are things that our funding body is sensitive to and aware of and have a tradition of being acceptable to. Because it's tied to classroom space and/or security. Those are good points of sale. In addition to that, we've got a long track record of coming in under budget, and so the fact that the market is moving a little bit here, we should have some reception to that as well. I think we're going to hit similar obstacles again when we talk about restrooms and concession stands, on Laverne and Smyrna, as much as those are absolute priorities for safety, for equity, for all of those reasons. But if I interpret this correctly, what we're doing is we're maintaining our good buffers by requesting the additional funding for these classroom and security priorities.
I think what I would like to do is to break them apart into different motions so that they will approve the Smyrna Middle, I think,
I believe so.
with us saying that we're going to take that ending fund balance, and they've already funded the primary piece. I'm a little bit reluctant to tie something else to, because if they say to us, well, you come back with a plan how to come up with this money, and they're tied to David Ure or anything else tied to it in that sense, then we're another month in a cycle of back through all of their committees and everything to go. So if we're going to request it all now, if that's really what you want to do, I kind of would like to break it apart so we can go ahead and start, especially with Smyrna Middle. If you kind of see what if all the money were there, I'd say go for it all in one motion, but I'm a little bit reluctant. I've learned a little bit.
All right, is there anything then to an argument, and I'm not making this argument, I'm questioning. As we're opening Rocky Fork Middle, I really don't see that we relieve any of the needs at Smyrna Middle, because the needs at Smyrna Middle are so long-standing. and its inefficiency of space and security issues, they're really not tied to. But somebody's going to ask that question, hey, aren't we building a middle school? Won't that help out Smyrna Middle? You know, something like that. So, but it doesn't change the priority. Smyrna Middle is still the highest priority, isn't it?
Right, but here's what we're gonna have to ask to do. We're gonna have to ask to put more money in it.
Right.
I mean, they've already approved it. They've approved that base bid and all to do it. All of that's a done deal.
Right.
What we've got to do then now is where do we take the other money? It looks like it's coming out of our ending fund balance, unless you just want to try to roll that, that thing to finish out the funding of the Smyrna Middle. See what I'm saying? Because they have got to change the total dollar amount funding. They have to approve all of our line items like that. So what Jeff is recommending in this spreadsheet is that we come up with a dollar figure that will check off Smyrna Middle. Some of it's
Out of
borrowed
ending
money.
fund balance?
No, some of it's borrowed money from them.
Right.
Some of it is out of our ending fund balance, is what it amounts to.
But
Combination of the two.
this $1,384,000 and the 125 that we're talking about using, we have already transferred this money to the building program. Essentially, we're requesting to borrow it internally so we have the right mix between shared and unshared.
Okay.
And we always have to, when we're doing elementary or high school, it's easier. But when we're doing a middle school, we have to maintain that shared ratio, or we're giving the city more borrowed money than we have to.
The sixth grade shares.
The sixth grade share, yeah.
So what is available, taking ending fund balance down to 5%? How much is available?
I've got that number here. It's not enough to do everything. I hope I saved that version. If we take fund balance down to 5%, we could take a total of 5.4 million out of ending fund balance.
And then you said and you had 1 point.
And we already, okay, after what I handed out to you tonight, we have 750,000 left of that transfer from fund balance in the building program, if tonight's stuff were approved.
That original 5 million.
So we'd have a little over 6.1 million
Available.
if we took fund balance down to 5%. But we've got the David Urey project, 2.8 million. Our estimate, and we would like to wait until we have bid prices on the Smyrna Laverne Concessions Athletics, $1.5 million. Then a parcel of land, 3.5, 4.5 million. We don't have enough for everything.
Well, on a positive note, last week they did pass the design fees 21-0. There was very little
They're not
discussion.
opposed. They're not opposed.
That's right, and I think this is a fair statement, and those of you that were there, I was not there, you can correct me, but I think on these 4 projects, we generally have the support of Mayor Burgess, I believe, and of the commission. Mr. Clardy?
From my perspective, it's just for what it's worth, and throw it out. We have been working to get these concessions in Richmond for years. I think that this is a very positive time to go forward with that. I think we've got some support at this time at the commission level. One of my fears is if we go forward with David Urey, that will not put a project out again. Then, when we go to ask for the high school money and elementary school next year, that pushed off to who knows when. They may never get done after that. So, that's just my thinking. So, it may be smart if in fact this is for the pleasure to fill those concessions and restrooms at those two high schools, which are much needed. It might be wise to go forward with the Smyrna Middle School, and that's desperate because of the feeding time it's taken down there. Go forward with the concessions and the restrooms from Indian Fund balance and put the David Urey on hold or till maybe we have four with the high school or something.
Well, the other thing too, the Saints bid, he did not bid less for getting both projects. In other words, we gave kind of an alternate. You know, if you've got Smyrna Middle, David, you can bid separately, or you can, if you get both, will you give a premium? We did not get a premium on putting the two together. So that bid, we accepted it was about 90 days. Things may change over the next 90 days. It would let you go ahead and kick in quicker, or you may decide to kick in the David Urey. I don't want us to do anything. I don't want us to tie things together and stop the Smyrna Middle. If you understand, that's where I'm coming from tonight, to try to get that project going. Because I think they're going to look at us and say, now, how you going to pay for this? I mean, I just kind of know that. Since they just finished borrowing last week.
I have a clarification on the addition. So the overage with Smyrna Middle, the bid for David Urey, and the restrooms at Laverne and Smyrna, what is that total?
Well, wait, I had another version.
This makes me feel good that you're having to take a moment, because
Okay, excluding the internal funding, we're moving within the building program from other projects. David Urey, Smyrna Middle, and our estimate for the two high school restroom concession stands, $6 million. And then we still have that land piece that we know we're looking at.
but right now, we do have 6.1
Right.
to do those projects. I know
Yes.
the land's important, but we have needs at this moment, and we have the funds to meet those needs.
All right, then can I ask Director or Mr. Clardy, give us a briefing on the urgency that you see for the next land purchase?
Mr. Clardy has been looking, you know, and you're about to encounter the 5-year building program, of course, like that's coming up. And we meet again tomorrow to look at that. There's some new things on the horizon, that's certainly there. But huge growth at the end of Amiable Road, huge growth because of middle school, probably because of the Bob Parks development on the Shelton Farm. There's 750 homes over a number of years. If we could find something in some area, that area that lets us deal with both of those or something, you may be looking at a 2 or 3 school complex again to try to get ahead of this.
And a 3-school?
So we're at the situation, do you then go, is the county commission gonna fund that for us now or not? I mean, that's the, and if they say no and you wait for that, then your cost for that goes up too.
One other thought that I had, Mr. Jordan will remember. One of the ways, when talking about the David Urey renovation, there's always the possibility of pairing that with our next elementary school. That, when we originally discussing these renovations, Dr. Bullen made that suggestion.
Dr. Bullen did that, we recommended that,
And
renovation.
that has been successful, not always, but at times. If we do make a decision to not move forward with David Urey because of the funding issue, that we might be able to tie that to Rocky Fork Elementary School.
Well, I listened to great interest to what both of you have said. It looks like to me we've got two priorities here. I just remember from the commission that when Mark Burns was chairman, I believe the last year or two that he was chairman, the Smyrna, Laverne, bleachers, concession stands, some combination of that came to Health and Ed. Never were able to get it through. When Mr. Hodge was chairman, he sent it up there. Well, this board sent it up there twice, at least twice. And I believe when Mr. Blair was chairman, he sent it up there twice, I believe. And I must have been a horrible Health and Ed chairman because I was never able to get it out of committee. At least I never could get it to the floor of the commission. And I don't believe, except for the situation getting worse, and I think Mr. Hodge has probably kept up with this more than anybody else, but except for the situation being, in my judgment, at least as intense as it was 5, 6, 7 years ago, I don't know if anything's changed. Particularly maybe at Smyrna, because they play AAA and they are playing Riverdale and Oakland at home every year, and Stewart's Creek and so forth. But on the other hand, there's always on the other hand, you've got a priority there of security at David Urey, and it might as well just open it up. Is there a board member who wants to make any further comment? Now that I've rambled, and we may want to change this motion, or maybe not.
You know, last year we did have, the reason we came back to the bleachers and things is because we had the $4.5 million one-time savings on the insurance spouse. We received $3.5 million, which came basically from our growth monies. Some commissioners asked me the other night, and I said, why you're seeing some things now is basically because we had that one time. You don't know that that's going to happen again. So the reason we pushed a little bit to try to get the concessions in the bleachers is, I can't say this is a one-time thing. I don't have that crystal ball, but I think you got a better opportunity. If you're going to have to pay for it yourself, I do think you got a better opportunity this year than maybe next year in the future. But that's, again, that's your decision.
Everyone that we have taken to Laverne and Smyrna and shown those areas, they have been convinced that it's not just a necessity, it's an urgent necessity to correct those issues. So,
They'll approve of spending our money to do
well,
it.
yes,
I don't
and,
think-
and those
I think they will.
restrooms in that area there for those programs, and it's just not football. You know, they play soccer, they have band activities and track and field. So, you know, I challenge anyone to go look. It's certainly an urgent issue to correct.
Is there a minimum ending fund balance?
3 is the audit thing.
That's what I was thinking. May I ask for a comment from Director or Mr. Sandvig on how do you feel about being at 4?
Well, and that would come up in the Budget Committee's discussion. The county came up with what this year, 7? What would Lisa Nolan say? I'm searching my memory.
Hers is in millions or a percentage.
Well, percentage.
Their policy is for 15%.
It's 15?
And they came in over 15%.
And I know they told us when we did that they were very glad to see that we had gotten that up some.
And our bond
So,
underwriting.
it's speculation to how their reaction would be, because we've got the 6 or 7 or so now, because we've spent it here, this would bring it down to the 5. Will they go further? I mean, I just can't say that.
Well, and then the other thing we have to watch carefully, we can have a $3 million downward swing or more in sales tax if the economy cools off. That is, this 5% gives us a cushion against that, against some totally unanticipated expenditure. We had one year, we had to amend in close to, was it as much as 3 million? Utilities and diesel fuel. It was a lot that we had to amend in at the end. Yeah, that 5% gives us some latitude. If we were to go as low as 3, some systems I've known of have had trouble making, they've been able to, but some of them have had to do tax anticipation notes because your property tax, our largest local source of revenue, don't hit our books, start hitting in November. We had one year where we were tight on making, the BEP was late, and we were tight on whether or not we would make our payroll. This was way back, and it was because the BEP was late. But Paul Long was very concerned if we'd be able to make our payroll, and we were. But we were tight. 3% is very scary.
Let me get you to look ahead because they're already bringing this up to us also. We open Rocky Fork Middle next year. And so you talk in terms of that, the startup fee for a new year because a whole new office, custodial staff, administrative staff, you move a lot of your teachers basically, but the fixed cost for starting schools is probably going to be something north of $2 million there, which you're looking at 4, 5, 6 cents on tax rate if you try to do that to open the new school. Or very often they say, take a look at that ending fund balance, can you help us or meet us somewhere? So at the same time we're talking that's out there too. I mean, even if it's another year away, I can't project that, but I know from my experience now in this short time that that becomes part of the conversation when we get ready to open a new school. Am I right?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Odom, you want us to make a motion. Wayne, were you about to?
We can write the motion for you. We're trying to get the feel for what you want. I think very clearly we need to separate some things and get, we probably for sure on do the budget amendment. Once we do the budget, the amendments Mr. Sandvig suggests to get the extra monies from our ending fund balance, that will take care of Smyrna Middle School. So the question then becomes, do you want to push at this meeting, do you want to push for the other party now, or want to wait a few days? What do you want to do? That subsequent motions would be a catch there. We want to approve the 2 bids for David Urey, and the approval of the bids is just you accepting the bid. And then the amendment that Mr. Sandvig is proposing, we can write in a motion, we'll move the monies to make the Smyrna Middle happen from our ending fund.
Point of clarification from Mr. Sandvig, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So if, with the overage with Smyrna Middle and the restrooms and projected land purchase, where would our ending fund balance be projected? I don't have to have an exact dollar amount, but you're... Should have brought your calculator.
That's why I brought this instead of an iPad. But I do, of course, have.
at
Oh, I'm sorry.
Smyrna Middle and the restrooms and whatever we think we may have to
Set aside for future,
Oh, exclude David Uri.
exclude
I'm
David
sorry.
Uri.
Okay,
My-
yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay, no, my, so, a total of 7.8 million. Basically, if we did that, we could,
We would have a healthy ending fund balance in that situation.
we would drop under 5, but we'd be close, yeah. We might drop under 5. I'm afraid of changing a variable and giving you a wrong answer. We might drop a little under 5, but yes, we're somewhere in that 2.5 to 3.5 million shortfall to do all of those things. Maybe it was 1.7 to do all of them. Now, if someone wants to sell us land for a real low price per acre, we could do all of it.
Amen.
Name it after you.
Where's that guy from Eagleville when we need him? Well, and it's entirely possible that as chair, I'm talking too much. So with that said, I'll keep talking. It appears to me that if we're going to build it out of ending fund balance, because we are being very cautious about them funding it, there ought to be some consideration from them that we're willing to do that. That's just a thought on my part. Also, I think this restrooms and concession stands and idea has built up some momentum to get this done. I've thought that before, and I've been wrong every single time. But I do think this time maybe I'm closer to being right. Also, I'm just going to point this out. In less than 3 years, we're going to go out to, the taxpayers are, out probably, if funded, we're going to go out to Rockvale, and we're going to build them the finest high school in the state. That's very likely going to happen. And when we do that, we will build them a football stadium among that fine campus, along with restrooms and concession stands, and anything else that we can possibly squeeze onto that campus to make it a great campus. And then we're going to turn right around the next week and look at Smyrna and Laverne and say, but you can't have that. No concession stands for you, and whatever. And I just don't think that that's right.
Mr. Jordan, I'm sorry.
It's all right. I'm used to it.
Yes. We aren't thinking give up on all of these projects, but we're trying, what are the priorities with the available cash we have? And then we will be, I'm sure, as we carry forward our building program, asking for funding for that difference. But where are our priorities if we don't have it all?
Understood. Thank you.
I want to revisit David Uri, even to ask for funding for it from them to help us to do it. I agree with that.
I'm sorry, Ms. Young, would you repeat that? No. No? Please, so that everybody can hear you.
We were just, I was just thinking if we could go back and ask for the best 2 to 3 scenarios that you think we might have to offer, and just bring it back to the board and let us know what the fund balance would be at that time. And then maybe we can make a good decision there.
I will share that we have the same situation at David Uri Elementary that we have at John Coleman and we have had at Roy Waldron, where we're in every classroom, every storeroom, every bathroom, every former locker room, et cetera, with every possible manner of instruction occurring. I have to say that I put David Urey, I mean, you're asking for priorities. I put David Urey ahead of land acquisition because it is an immediate need. I know the price of land goes up, and I don't want to be a poor steward, but there is an absolute need with student needs attached at David Urey Elementary.
And I would like to see Mr. Young's suggestion carried through, again, 3 or 4 different, if not 2 or 3 or 4 different options. So I think that's a great suggestion, Mr. Young.
And on land, have we ever pursued, I know we do a lot of asking for grant money and stuff like that. Do we have a group that go out here and look at soliciting people for land donations? Have we ever, anybody focus on that?
A 3-campus school, again, we're looking for 120 acres?
Probably 100 at the smallest.
Okay.
But if it gets outside the city sewer, then we have to have, probably it takes about 5 acres of good dirt to support a drip system for those 3 campuses.
Okay.
I'd just like to say that if we're moving to the 2-story schools, that will take a smaller footprint.
Okay, I think we have a plan of action here for Thursday night, and looks like we're going to have some options to discuss and consider. So if there's no objection, I'm going to move on. Mr. Odom?
Okay, this is number 12 under financial matters. 12A, cell phone stipend. Mr. Mark Gullion, Special Education Coordinator, would like to request the standard phone stipend for Terry Burnett, a special education caseworker, because her position requires travel between work-based learning sites. She's required to communicate between the multiple job sites daily via an email, and at the moment is using her personal cell phone to communicate. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve for Terry Burnett, special education caseworker, to receive a monthly cell phone stipend. That's $35. The caseworker thing, your special ed, where we place students in different places, maybe a McDonald's or other places they're working. We monitor that when we place them out for that.
I just want to say I appreciate the director maintaining this benefit that is oftentimes deserved by central office employees. Maintaining that is something that comes before the board and is an intentional decision and is not something that we're just granting without very intentional effort. This is the kind of thing that we do that keeps the pennies tightly wound and allows us to educate under the state average and those kind of things. Seems like a small decision, but it's important that you bring it this way, and I appreciate it.
Any other comment? Mr. Odom, B?
B is the Fund Cooperative Agreement for 501c3 school support groups. Before I read this, what we decided to do, one of the things that we have, Matlock and Clements has been the one that have won our bids for the last several years to audit our schools' books, and also the district, and it's turned in then to that becomes that compilation book that you get, and when it goes to the comptroller's office. We asked them, what would you ask for our booster clubs that's outside a standard audit, with just the cookbook type, or is there some special things that you think would be better to help us try to keep from any fraudulent situations or things happening? So tonight, this recommendation basically comes from these auditors saying, if you were asking us to kind of design it, this is what we would recommend. So that's what I'm reading to you, and it's board's pleasure, of course, whatever we change. Two changes are proposed for the annual cooperative agreements between Rutherford County Schools and the 501c3 school support groups which do not want to have their funds flow through the school activity funds. Remember, everybody else that's not 501c3 comes through our books. So that's basically, so we're talking about that particular group that y'all were contacted about so much. The first edition is a requirement that the 501c3 school support group contract with an independent CPA to perform the agreed-upon procedures. That will be in the Rutherford County School System's Administrative Procedures Handbook for a school support group, and to provide the Rutherford County, Tennessee Board of Education with a copy of the independent accountant's report on these procedures within 90 days after the end of the school organization's fiscal year. Our school activity fund auditors, Matlock and Clements, think that having an independent CPA perform the agreed-upon procedures will address our concerns with supplements and fraud at least as well as an audit. If you remember, some of the 501c3s asked that they had they had people that volunteered for them that were auditors and this, that, and the other. Our auditors do not recommend that. They recommend that it be an independent of somebody that's not working in that booster club. All supplements and payments for services would be examined. In an audit, only sample transactions would be examined. The second edition would require approval from the principal and director of schools before submitting a request for a gaming event to the State of Tennessee Division of Charitable Solicitations and Gambling. This is a new edition for you, first time tonight, because we've had one organization went straight to the state to get permission and actually did receive permission, and of course you're talking about raffles or anything like that, that it has to be. So what we're saying, we don't want you anymore to go to the state directly first. You need to come to see if the principal approves, if we approve as a school district, before you go out in our name and try to solicit this from the state. So recommend approval of the motion to add to the cooperative agreement between Rutherford County Schools and the 501c3 school support groups the requirements that the school support group contract with an independent CPA to perform the agreed-upon attestation procedures as presented and obtain approval from the principal and director of schools before submitting a request for a gaming event to the State of Tennessee Division of Charitable Solicitations and Gambling. And Mr. Samling's prepared to answer additional questions related to this.
Board?
I do have a concern, Mr. Jordan.
Yes, sir, Mr. Young.
If we follow through with this, the whole purpose of doing this was to be transparent. If we follow through with this motion, basically, what would keep anybody from asking to be a 501c3? And then we're right back to square one.
Well, I think it discourages them from being a 501c3 because they have to agree to pay for this outside audit in addition to the other expenses they incur as a 501c3, having their 990 prepared, the fees that the IRS charges the 501c3s. In talking to some of the officials of some of these groups, some of y'all heard some of them speak, they feel very strongly they cannot support the program the way they want to increase their support for the program, running it through our financial statements. And by requiring that this report be submitted to us, I think that addresses a lot of the transparency issues, knowing that all supplements and payments for services will be examined by that independent CPA. I am not independent with regards to the school or the school board. No CPA, one of the groups who has a lot of internal controls has a CPA on their board. She is not independent with regard to them. She could not do this engagement. And we are requiring that it be submitted to us by the accounting firm. I think it provides a lot of openness, and we are still requiring the reporting to us of expenditures and all of that. Any supplements would be coming to the board for approval. So we're trying to address that transparency side, but there are corporations and companies out there that, even though it doesn't matter to the IRS, they have policies at their level that prohibit them from making donations to a school, but they can make it to a 501c3. And that was a very legitimate point these groups were making.
Mr. Hodge?
I guess the question I have, if you went this route, or if we went this route, are you gonna have, or would we have the same CPA firm doing all of them?
You possibly could, but I'd be quite surprised if that happened.
Wouldn't that be our call, I guess? I just want to be consistent in what we're doing.
Yeah. I think by defining the engagement, it should be pretty consistent. The items we have in there are pretty exhaustive. And I do think a lot of the groups are going to decide it is simply not worth it. Some of the groups that are right now thinking, no, we want to stay independent, I think some of them will make that decision. Oh, the costs, it's not worth it. We will go through the schools. I think we will see most of the groups move that way. The high school bands are definitely a group that may not. Some of them may, some of them may not.
But the ones we're gonna have that go through the audit, are we gonna use the same group to do them all?
No, sir. No, that they would engage.
That's
They
their
would choose
choice,
the
what you're
CPA
saying.
firm. That would be their choice. Yes, sir.
They're having to pay for it out of their funds.
I understand that,
But these,
but also understand when it comes to accounting, people do things different.
yes, but they're, as independent CPAs, they know what this terminology means. They know they are signing off that they have done these procedures. They go through peer review by other CPA firms. One of my cousins, her husband's a CPA in another state. The peer review is one of the biggest drawbacks for him in his accounting practice. One of the biggest nightmares he deals with, both having to do it for other firms, going through it with his work. I think the safeguards are there with this, Mr. Hodge.
Whatever you feel comfortable with, I just want to make sure we're consistent all the way through.
I just don't like some groups being managed one way and some being managed another. To me, just shouldn't happen. But, your call if you feel comfortable with it.
We can always, if it doesn't work after a year or two, the reason we reacted is because you had so many people and so many organizations. It wasn't just bands. You got some our largest football program in the county is a 501c3 and raises a lot of money. And so a lot of these people came to us very passionately and basically said, will you give us a chance to try to do it this way? So we actually listened in those public hearings in that time and said, if you're going to go through all of the federal requirements and now our new requirements for your 501c3 and turn it into us, we'll give this a try. And everybody else has got to bring it in to this bookkeeper we hired and do it within the school. But if it doesn't work for some reason, we can always go back and say, nobody has a 501c3, it all comes in. If that's the point you want to go, we can do that. But I mean, you sat here and you heard the sentiment. What's best for Rutherford County schools and get transparency? I mean, that's what we want. All of us want that.
Let me just clarify, I don't have a problem with the 501c3. I'm just saying, I don't know how many groups you're gonna have that fall under this as far as total wise. I'm just saying when they have a review or their audit of this, you're gonna get audits from several different people. I mean, that's what I'm trying, that's all I'm asking. Are we gonna use one firm? And I'm not suggesting Matlock or any of them to review all the 501c3s.
Clements would probably not meet the independence standard for auditing the 501c3s. I'm almost certain they would not, because they audit our school activity funds. I didn't check that out, but
I mean, I'm not suggesting them,
yeah, but
just made that.
I'd be surprised if it turned it, but it could be one or two firms making a little niche of that.
And I don't, since we don't pay for it, we'd almost have to, I hate to say bid it, because bid it involves money, and since we wasn't paying for it, how would you go about, naming one? I don't know, maybe a Jeff Reed question or something. I mean, that's the piece that I'm,
Name one, you leave it up to the individual organization to pick their own CPA. To meet whatever standards the school system requires.
I don't know, Mr. Holliday, Ms. Moore, or Mr. Odom may remember it differently, but it appeared that the last meeting, and I hadn't been there for one, I think the last meeting, the people that were there, and there were a number of people there from various booster clubs, about 20, I guess, or so, and it looked like to me that they were concerned with three things, and I sure got the first one. I think they were concerned about that we didn't really know, and they may have been right, by the way, of how much they were actually doing on a day-to-day basis to support a football team or a band, really any group, but those were the majority of people in the room. That was one thing they kept telling us what they were actually doing, which to me sounded like an awful lot of work, by the way, that they were doing almost on a volunteer basis. Second thing is, and if my fellow board members would correct me here, I think they repeatedly said that they were not worried about an audit, that an audit was fine. They were okay with an audit. But they were worried about the 501, and that they were not going to be allowed, they're not going to be able to get the donations that they'd gotten in the past, and you just alluded to that, and so did Mr. Hodge. And that is a danger, because they need a lot of money. Now, was kind of my takeaway. I don't know if everybody agrees with me or not, but that's what I didn't say a word all night. I didn't want to get lynched, so I didn't say anything. Now, we were okay. We were all right. I think they wanted to, my impression was they wanted to kind of come along here, and they recognized that what we had done and what we had changed and why we changed it, and made some recommendations.
it's an element of compromise. I mean, that's basically what this is, to allow them to keep the 501c3, if they wanted to go through that much.
But it does hold them to a high standard. If
We specify what's reported.
A prosecutable standard. And the 501c3 officers, if through this audit requirement that we're putting in place, or any other challenge, the reason of those 501c3s is because those officers are personally liable. And so when we talk about, we've turned up a problem, who can we go after? What can we do? Who's going to be accountable for this? Under the stipulations of the 501c3 requirements for the state of Tennessee, those individuals are personally liable. They are personally prosecutable for any kind of fraudulent activity or something like that. And that's part of the transparency, accountability that we were seeking is don't mess with our students, because our students and the activities that they're working on are this board's priority.
Further comments from anyone? Okay. An honor is coming to Mr. Nolan, isn't it?
13?
Yes, sir.
13 is naming Riverdale High School football field. Pursuant to policy 3.210, the director may make recommendation to the board for naming a portion of a school campus. Ryan Nance, on behalf of Riverdale High School, submitted a request to rename the Riverdale High School football field the Tom Nolan Field at Tomahawk Stadium effective October 14th, 2016. This is a date of the Riverdale versus Oakland High School football game for senior night. Mr. Nolan has been a teacher, coach, assistant principal, and principal in Rutherford County over the course of the last 35 years. Recommend approval. The motion is to name the football field at Riverdale High School the Tom Nolan Field.
Mr. Nance is here if you need any further information, but I think this is exactly what he submitted last week. If there are board comments?
Just for the sake of consistency, I am going to express and nothing disparaging toward Mr. Nolan at all, because he is a fine example of Rutherford County excellence without question. But it will only be because of our growth that we continue to have enough things to name something after so many, because everyone in our system is of high character, high accomplishment, high achievement, and perhaps deserves honors along these lines. I have submitted to the board before revisions to policy 3.210 that would raise the standard and for naming something, and there are reasons for that, none of which seem appropriate when you talk about somebody as excellent as Tom Nolan. But I will share that in the work session. I will be quiet as a church mouse on Thursday.
I thought you were going to want him to be deceased first.
Well, worth talking about.
Do you want me to read it from mention?
No, I'll handle it. Any other comments, entertaining or otherwise, on number 13? Thank you, Mr. Holliday. I do remember our lengthy discussions on that earlier. Okay, the 14, I guess, is mine, for information only, and I think this is all pretty good news here. I hope it is. Anyway, TSBA recommends reviewing policies annually and review Section 1 board operations this month and refer any potential revisions to Ms. McLeod, and we do meet next month, and I'll get to that in a minute. On B, Mr. Young has agreed, thank goodness, to continue as our board liaison on the County Audit Committee, and his past service and future service by me, certainly, and I'm sure by you, much appreciated. Mr. Holliday has also agreed to continue in the where he's done an excellent job, I think you would agree, and with the Federal Relations Network, and I certainly appreciate his, and frankly, I'm amazed at what he has to go through you go to Washington, huh? That's amazing. On Part D, Ms. Moore has agreed, and Mr. Holliday, I didn't give you, well, I didn't give Mr. Young either, but if, Mr. Young, if you have a comment, please make it. I went back. I appreciate your service.
Thank you.
Mr. Holliday, I appreciate you continuing in this role.
Thank
you. Tennessee Legislative Network, TLN, Lisa Moore is going to handle that in this coming year. And Mr. Hodge has done a terrific job, and he and I both need a break from the legislature, frankly, but that's another story. Ms. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity and the confidence, and Mr. Hodge especially for being willing to hand off the baton. I may very well be willing to hand it back to him by the time the legislative session is over, but I look forward to the opportunity, and Mr. Hodge, I'm certainly going to need your support and your help to guide me down that path. So big shoes to fill, but thank you.
Part E is the Policy Committee, which is, of course, the board, along with some of our finest employees, and you know them well, and they all have agreed, I believe, to serve again. I haven't heard from every one of them, but I believe we're in good shape. Ms. Michael, as far as you know, and that's, I want to read their name. They get very little recognition. Kenneth Curley, Bill Tollett, Kim Franklin, Joan Scales Simmons, and Dr. Andrea Anthony, Claudia Belden, Regina Harvey, our director, of course, and our attorneys, Angel McLeod and Jeff Reed. And I said I'd give you a date. The next policy committee meeting, which Ms. McLeod has set up, is October 24th. And then the one after that will be January 17th. Also, two committees forming as of tonight, and the first one is F. And Mr. Hodge has agreed to be chairman, and I think this is, frankly, and then Mr. Young's going to serve on this committee as well. It's not just important; it's I think extremely important. It's on sports safety, to steady sports safety, including, of course, concussions. And I am aware that we're right in the middle of football season, and also girls soccer and some other things. And Mr. Hodge and I really haven't had a chance to talk necessarily what his plans are, but he'll be appointing a committee to gather information on this and study it from every angle possible. And Mr. Hodge, I deeply appreciate you agreeing to do that. Our supplement committee, which you are aware of, I think, will be myself, and Jim Estes will also represent the board, Jason Brown from Eagleville, Bill Hockenberry, coach from Smyrna Middle, Ben Cates, a citizen, and former coach, John Dinkins, principal, Wilson, Lee Ramsey, coach at Siegel High, Chris Chambers, assistant principal at Laverne High, Tim Tackett, of course, our county AD, and Lindsay Halford, our newly appointed fine arts person. And we will meet on October 12th. And then again, these are on Wednesdays, November 9, and I hope to have the supplement committee with a wrap up and a decision and a recommendation to the board. I hope to have that done on December 7th so we can submit it either in December or January, but obviously I don't know for sure. That may not work out. But I'm hoping for those 3 dates. And the purpose of the supplement committee, as this board is aware, but there are people watching that may not be aware, is not to look at the total salaries of administrators or assistant principals or whatever. It's more for coaches and positions that teachers are supplemented for, and it could be anything. It could also be, we're going to look at adding maybe some supplements for things that it's probably time, and adjusting the supplement that is paid. So far, between Mr. Tackett and myself, we've gotten about, well, probably 40 recommendations. We've heard from well over 20 different people and principals and whatever that want something. And, of course, a lot of them are the same thing. But anyway, that's what the committee will be doing beginning on October 12th, 5 o'clock. And I believe we're meeting in this room. Is that right? We're meeting in this room. Okay. Insurance update Thursday? Is that when you meet? Okay. All right. Director's update?
Do not have anything tonight.
Nothing tonight? General discussion by board members now, or we can wait till Thursday if you prefer? Anyone? Holiday?
Yes, sir, thank you. Ms. Michaels, can I mention January 8th? Are we far enough along on, oh, thank you. John Coleman Elementary, we will enjoy a ribbon cutting on January the 8th, and so I'd encourage my fellow board members to add that date to your calendar, and we are looking forward to that. And Mr. Clardy, great work as the building continues to come together. And I spoke with the principal this past weekend, and she's very excited about everything that's going on there, and looking forward to that move into that new facility. Also, this past weekend, I attended, as well as the director. Mr. Jordan, you were there also at David Urey's 40th anniversary celebration for the opening of the David Urey Elementary School. And that was just a really special occasion. Mayor Mary Esther Reed spoke, as well as several others, Miss Marianne Rogers, and just a whole litany of people. Mr. Zago was there. It was a really, really special time. And the building looks as good as well, it looks far better than you would expect. For being 40 years old, the PTO was assisting with a carnival-like atmosphere. There was a book fair in the library. There were students present, families present. I will share with my fellow board members that I spoke with maybe a dozen different families at some length for conversations. And in those dozen families, I spoke with one from Puerto Rico, and I spoke with another from Iceland. The others were generally from Smyrna. But they were living in Smyrna as well, but their heritage were from those areas. It is truly a unique atmosphere, and David Urey is a special, special blessing. They honored our director with a wonderful portrait because you were principal there for how many years?
22 years.
22 years, principal at that school. Outstanding honor. In addition to that, my fellow board members know that I worked really, really hard to get us a fine arts coordinator here at the central office, and I have gotten a couple of notifications that she is just doing an outstanding job, and so I'm thrilled about that. I wanted to share this evening with my fellow board members because, you know, it takes about 4 years to get a new idea going. I've got a new idea, and so I wanted to share that with my fellow board members. A lot of our students turn 18 before they leave our care and our campuses. And once they turn 18, they are then eligible for the citizenship process for the United States. And I don't know how to do it. I do not know how to accomplish this. But before they leave our campuses, if they happen to be 18, I sure would like to find a way for them to be United States citizens if they happen not to be. Right now, we educate them regardless of what their status may be. When they come into our buildings, we educate them. That is our responsibility, it is our duty, it is what we accomplish. But for us to truly create citizens, and we're one of the things we're doing is creating citizens. We need to make sure that as many as possible have that citizenship. I had ambition to maybe accomplish that through work in the state legislature. That didn't work out. But grassroots-wise, I'm going to be thinking on that and working on that. And if I don't express it and share it with others, then we can't accomplish that. The American traditions, the American ideals are not something that need our protection. They need our participation. And as such, we need as many participants as possible. In the same way that we see our students translate for their families, our students can be responsible for knowing what the process is to become an American citizen. And once again, Rutherford County can be the pebble in the pond that will ripple across this country with an example for how we can get more American citizens in the process that we find ourselves in right now. Tennessean had a front page article, I believe yesterday, about the percentage of other nationalities that are in our area. We know that there are over 86 languages spoken in our Rutherford County schools. How are we going to respond? And anyway, that's something I'm thinking about, and it may take me another 4 years to get there.
Well, you need to.
Roy Walden's also planning their 40th, because Commissioner Cook reminded me the other day, she was working on the cake for it sometime. Do you have that date with you? It's like David Urey and Roy Walden opened the same year. That was another year where Rutherford County Schools opened 2 schools. There's not been many of those, but that was one of them. We'll bring, we can talk Thursday night or something and mention that, but it was, it's coming up too.
Indeed.
Going back to what Mr. Holliday said, Commissioner Shanto Soriano invited me to the swearing-in ceremony of, according to him, a few people and I should have known better because it was at Murphy Center. And they were going to become citizens. And I got there, and I have no idea how many people were there. A lot. And some of you may have been to these ceremonies. I plead total ignorance up to that day. This was maybe 4 years ago. But there were a lot of people there from all over the world. And the federal government was there, of course, to swear people in and all this kind of stuff and give them their certificate of being a United States citizen. And nobody took a knee, I can tell you that. It was great. And your suggestion is a terrific one, I think. Also, I bring this up only because we're moving toward a great day, and that is John Coleman. I ran into Principal Haley Friday night at the Eagleville game, where I think she has a son playing, I believe. At any rate, the Eagleville jumped on Cascade quick, and it was 28-6. But anyway, to say she's excited, Mr. Clardy, does not. I'm just reporting to the board. She is really just delighted and tells me every time to pass thanks along to whoever's responsible for this. It's going to be a terrific addition down there and practically a brand new school. And she comes back raving about the office, and the other night it was the library that she was telling us about. So anyway, I'm just passing that along to the board. Are there other comments from anyone on any general discussion item? If not, I sense perhaps a movement toward dinner at some point here. Going, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.